You're a criminal. I apprehended you.
What about your wife? She knows you bumped off her boyfriend. You think she's gonna keep quiet?
What my wife thinks or does is no concern of yours. Leave her out of it.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors and let you know that there will be spoilers ahead. Today on Classic Movie Review, we are taking on Film Noir, The Dark Corner 1946. Based on an email suggestion, I will cover In the Heat of the Night 1967 as a tribute to Sidney Poitier next time. It's a great film. Keep writing in and sending recommendations and observations. I really appreciate them. After watching Being the Ricardos 2021, I wanted to find out what kind of actress Lucille Ball really was. I located The Dark Corner 1946, which just happens to be a film noir, and I thought that would be a great place to find out. Today's film has a decent 7.1 rating on Imdb.com. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 100% on the tomato meter and 71% audience approval. New York Times film critic Bosley Carruthers said in a May 9, 1946 review, quote, "When a talented director and a resourceful company of players meet up with a solid story, say one such as The Dark Corner, then movie-going becomes a particular pleasure. This is tough-fibered, exciting entertainment revolving around a private detective who is marked as the fall guy in a cleverly contrived murder plot. The action, and there is plenty of it, is violent and explosive. Starting with a going-over, Galt gives a mysterious toughie who has been shadowing him. The character is identified only as White Suit, obviously because he affects such a suit, and he is played with rugged naturalness by William Bendix. In fact, director Henry Hawthorne has drawn superior performances from most of the cast. Lucille Ball has one of her happier roles as an acid-tongued secretary who shares the private eye's troubles, and Clifton Webb has another chance as an art gallery proprietor to indulge his talent for acerbic characters. A strikingly good-looking girl named Kathy Downs is introduced as a sort of second Laura in Mr. Webb's cinematic marital affair, but she is badly in need of dramatic training, and he happily eschews murky photography for mood effects, using instead a muted and highly evocative musical score. His fine craftsmanship is very evident throughout The Dark Corner, and it is regrettable that he had to mar the atmospheric realism by resonating to scene faking in a few sequences. But this is a minor shortcoming in an otherwise sizzling piece of melodrama." Unquote. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Clifton Webb played art dealer and owner of Cathcart Galleries, Hardy Cathcart. Webb played this role with the same snobbery he showed so well in Laura 1944, where he was first covered, and he showed it in The Razor's Edge 1946. He truly is a guy you love to hate. William Bendix played the role of Stouffer, aka Fred Floss or White Suit, an investigator with a decidedly seedy side. Bendix was first covered playing a hardball detective in Detective Story 1951. Popping up in a small uncredited role as the maid that found the body was Ellen Corby. Corby was first covered in Illegal 1955. Lucille Ball played tough-as-nails secretary Kathleen Stewart. Ball was born in New York State in 1911. From a large family, she left home when she was 15. She attended drama school in New York, but did not excel. Ball became a model and by 1935 was working for Max Factor. Ball began with menial roles in movies beginning in 1933. She had a bit in the very good pre-code film Blood Money 1933. It took time, but better roles slowly came in. These films include Top Hat 1935, Stage Door 1937, Too Many Girls 1940, The Big Street 1942, Dewberry Was a Lady 1943, Best Foot Forward 1943, and Without Love 1945. In 1940, she met and married Cuban actor and singer Desi Arnaz. In 1948, Ball took a role in a radio comedy titled My Favorite Husband. In 1950, CBS converted this show into I Love Lucy, which ran from 1951 to 1957. Desi was cast as her husband on the show. The marriage was rocky, but they continued onward with the Lucy-Desi Comedy Hour, 1957 to 1960. During this time, Ball was briefly investigated for registering as a communist. Ball and Desi owned Deslu Productions by this time, making Ball the first female head of her own studio. During this time, Ball was responsible for greenlighting The Untouchables, 1959 to 1963, Mission Impossible, 1966 to 1973, and God bless her, Star Trek, 1966 to 1969. Ball filed for divorce in 1960, and the studio was divided between the couple and its stockholders. Ball sold her part of the studio for $17 million in 1967. Ball more or less revived her Lucy character in Here's Lucy 1968 to 74. Other movies made during the later years include The Dark Corner 1946, Lured 1947, Fancy Pants 1950, Yours, Mine, and Ours 1968, and that god-awful Mame 1974. Ball died in 1989 at the age of 77. Mark Stevens played suffering private investigator Bradford Galt. Stevens was born in Ohio in 1916. Stevens had an American father, but was sent to live in England when his parents divorced. After having trouble in school, he was sent to Canada to live with his older sister. Stevens injured his back while training to be an Olympic diver for Canada. This exempted him from service in World War II. He returned to Ohio and began working in theater and radio. Being ineligible for active duty, Stevens was well positioned to work in Hollywood, with many leading men being away serving their country, except for John Wayne. Stevens had his first film role in 1943. He was positioned in the background in films such as Destination Tokyo 1943, Hollywood Canteen 1944, Passage to Marseilles 1944, God is My Co-Pilot 1945, Objective Burma 1945, Pride of the Marines 1945, and Rhapsody in Blue 1945. Stevens obtained some more significant roles in film noir such as Within These Walls 1945, The Dark Corner 1946, and The Street with No Name 1948. He continued appearing in war films, film noirs, musicals, and dramas. Some films during this time include The Snake Pit 1948, Between Midnight and Dawn 1950, The Big Frame 1952, Cry Vengeance 1954, and Timetable 1956. Stevens was pretty active on television during the 1950s. He eventually moved to Spain, but he continued to work intermittently. He died in Spain at the age of 77 in 1994. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
In New York, a man in a white suit, Stauffer, aka Fred Floss, William Bendix, is watching the office of Bradford Galt, Mark Stevens' private investigator. A police lieutenant, Frank Reeves, Reed Hadley, enters Galt's office. He begins questioning the secretary, Kathleen Stewart, Lucille Ball. Kathleen is New York City tough and evades answering about her boss.
How long have you been working for him?
Several weeks.
What do you know about him?
I like him.
Keep you busy?
I sharpen pencils, do the typing, answer the phone, and mind my own business.
Galt comes into the office through the back door. Galt knows Reeves. Reeves says he promised his friends in California that Galt won't get into trouble. Galt says he got a bad rap in California. Reeves leaves him with a warning to stay clean. After Reeves leaves, Galt invites Kathleen to have dinner with him. The couple end up at an arcade where they play games. Stauffer is keeping an eye on the couple. Kathleen spots the follower. When Kathleen tells that they are being followed, Galt already knows. Galt puts Kathleen in a cab to circle around and follow Stauffer. Galt ambushes Stauffer and forces him to go to the PI's office.
Hey, there's a pepper pot under the hat, Buster. Let's take a walk.
Galt calls his gun a pepper pot. Under gunpoint, Stauffer identifies that he is Fred Foss and a private investigator. Galt smashes Stauffer's fingers with the gun butt, says he was hired by Anthony Jardine, Kurt Krieger. Galt lets Stauffer go. Kathleen is outside in a cab and almost gets spotted by Stauffer. Kathleen follows Stauffer but loses him in traffic. She returns to the office where Galt is doing some heavy drinking. They get all kissy-faced. Afterwards, he warns her to get out of the business. Anthony Jardine pulls up outside Cathcart's gallery in top hat and tails. He is ushered into a fancy party hosted by Hardy Cathcart, Lipton Webb, and his young wife, Mary Cathcart, Kathy Down. Hardy and Jardine are good friends. Jardine sneaks away to meet with Lucy Wilding, Molly Lamont. Apparently, she has paid him off with a Van Gogh rather than cash. He returns a stack of letters to Lucy. Stauffer calls the party and identifies himself as the guy from San Francisco. He says he pretended to break under questioning. The person he talks with is not shown. Later, Stauffer is waiting outside of the Hi-Hat Club. Galt and Kathleen are at a table inside. Galt is distracted and Kathleen is falling in love. Galt has warned her repeatedly to get out before it's too late. Lieutenant Reeves enters the club. Galt tells Reeves he wants to talk. Galt tells Reeves about the trouble coming from Jardine. Galt and Kathleen dance the night away as she won't take the hint to get out before it's too late. Later that night, outside Kathleen's place, Stauffer tries to run Galt down with his car. Kathleen and Galt go into a cafe to recover. A newspaper boy gives him a partial license plate from the attempted hit-and-run vehicle. Stauffer arrives outside of Cathcart's galleries and switches cars. Jardine and Cathcart are inside plotting. Cathcart goes out to buy a painting. Mary watches from the balcony. Jardine leaves in the car that Stauffer used when he tried to run down Galt. Kathleen and Galt wait for the police report on the license number. Galt tells Kathleen the story of Jardine. They were partners in San Francisco. Jardine was blackmailing clients and stealing from the firm. When Galt confronted him, they went on a drive to pick up the stolen money. Jardine slugged Galt and poured booze all over him. Jardine placed Galt behind the wheel and sent him into traffic. A truck driver was killed and Galt got 2 years for manslaughter. The call comes in and it seems Jardine is behind the attack. Galt storms out and leaves Kathleen behind. Jardine is in his place looking at the Van Gogh he got through skullduggery. Remember, try to use skullduggery every day. Mary arrives and she and Jardine are very good friends. Mary complains that her marriage to Cathcart is not enough. She asks to go away with Jardine, but he balks at the plan.
Hey, darling, what does that matter?
I have already borrowed money from you, haven't I? Or do you think I want to go through life being taken care of like a pet poodle?
But darling, we have my jewels. They're yours. You're taking them from me for my sake.
Darling, I've wanted you to say that. But
No more buts. Just tell me when we can go. Must be soon.
Perhaps tomorrow. There's some business I have to take care of first. I'll let you know.
Jardine's doorbell buzzes and Mary hides in the bedroom. At the door is Galt, and he is piping mad. There is no love lost between the two men. Jardine tries to pull a gun, but Galt gets to his first. Galt tells Jardine to pull the tail and leave him alone. Jardine says he did not hire a tail, and he is not after Galt in any way. The two men get into a fistfight, and Galt quickly gains the upper hand. Mary calls the police. After Galt knocks out Jardine, he sees the lipstick-smeared glass that Mary was drinking from. Galt tries to get into the bedroom, but he hears the police coming, and he has to leave. Jardine wakes and sends Mary outside before the police find her in his apartment. Jardine tells the police that nothing has happened. However, they see that the apartment is roughed up. Under pressure, Jardine gives up Galt's name. Galt returns to his apartment and Kathleen is waiting in the shadows for his return. They go upstairs and Galt explains what has happened. Later, at the Cathcart Gallery's exhibit, Cathcart is catering to the wealthy ladies. Cathcart takes a group to the vault to show a recently obtained painting. Jardine and Mary go along for the viewing. Cathcart is very proud of the painting. The woman in the picture looks like Mary.
Why, it's Mary.
The resemblance isn't pure accident.
You mean it was retouched?
Certainly not. I found the portrait long before I met Mary, and I worshipped it. When I did meet her, it was as if I'd always known her and wanted her.
Jardine sees dollar signs. He and Mary have a quick kiss, and Cathcart overhears their plans to run away together. When Cathcart returns to his office, Stauffer is waiting. Cathcart has paid Stauffer to trick Galt into killing Jardine. So far the plan has not worked, and Stauffer just wants to shoot Jardine. Stauffer calls Galt at his office. He says he will tell what Jardine is up to for 2 yards powder money, meaning he will leave town for $200. Their meeting is set for Galt's apartment. Cathcart says he can get Jardine to come to the meeting. Galt stashes Kathleen in a theater while he goes to the meeting. She is not happy. Stauffer climbs the fire escape into Galt's apartment. He waits in the dark with chloroform ready. Galt walks into the trap and is eventually subdued. Jardine arrives at the apartment and Stauffer kills him with a fireplace iron. He places the iron in the hands of the passed out Galt. Before he leaves, he stomps Galt's hand as payback. As Kathleen rings the buzzer, Galt wakes to find the murdered Jardine. He finally lets her inside and she is shocked by the murder. Kathleen wants Galt to call the cops. Galt drags the body away as Kathleen looks for clues and straightens up the apartment. Of course, including getting rid of the evidence. Galt can't believe she is helping, never even asking if he really killed Jardine. They get all kissy-face and swear undying love. Galt finally realizes that Jardine was not the person after him. Galt and Kathleen head out to look for Stauffer. Kathleen pulls the info on Stauffer and they head to his ratty apartment. Galt goes in with a gun, but he is not the right guy. Galt is despondent. Stauffer calls in a favorable report to Cathcart. Cathcart goes to Mary's room where she is packing to leave. She pretends to be in bed with a headache. He confronts her about Jardine, but she plays it cool. Cathcart implies that he will pay off Jardine and he will go away. Mary gets upset with Cathcart when he starts talking about an affair between Jardine and Lucy Wilding. Galt wakes in the morning at Kathleen's apartment. There is nothing in the paper about Jardine's murder. Galt is broken, but Kathleen props him up. Jardine's body is still under Galt's bed. At last, Galt realizes he can find Stauffer because of the ink stain on his white suit. Galt and Kathleen head out to check the big cleaning operations. Stauffer is holed up in his apartment, but goes down to call in to Cathcart. There's a small girl playing on the stairway. Cathcart is concerned because nothing is in the paper. Cathcart tells Stauffer to meet him at his dental appointment at 3 p.m. in the Grant building. Galt and Kathleen wait at the office as the search for the suit was a bust. Lieutenant Reeves shows up to talk to Galt about the fight with Jardine, but there is nothing about a murder. They get a call from a cleaner and now have Stauffer's address. A new maid, Ellen Corby, is cleaning Galt's apartment. She lets out a wail as she finds Jardine's body. Galt goes to Stauffer's apartment, but he is already checked out. The little child tells where she heard Stauffer say he was going. Stauffer meets Cathcart at the Grant building. Cathcart pretends to pay Stauffer off, but shoves him out the building window. Cathcart heads up the stairs to his dental appointment. Galt arrives at the building as the police investigate the dead body smashed into the sidewalk. The cabbie says that Stauffer took a Brody. There will be more on this in the conclusions. Galt steals the cab that contains Stauffer's luggage. The police follow in hot pursuit. Galt makes it back to his office, where he and Kathleen search in vain for identification. Galt breaks down again, but Kathleen keeps working on the problem. It comes out that the little girl said Stauffer was going to get his casera at the gallery. Kathleen remembers the gallery. The police show up at the office, and Galt heads out the back with the gallery as his destination. The police now know about Jardine's murder. Galt goes to the gallery and begins touring with Miss Dennis, Eloise Hart. He describes Stauffer, and she has never seen the man around the gallery. Cathcart takes a bag down to the vault, while Galt pretends to shop. After saying he will buy a $45,000 statue, Galt asks to see the owner. Miss Dennis leaves Galt in the office, saying Cathcart is in the vault. Miss Dennis tells Cathcart that a buyer is waiting in his office. Galt uses this time to search for clues. Mary comes into the office looking for her husband. Galt tells her that her husband will be back from the vault in a moment. He checks out her gams as he begins to put the case together. Galt begins asking about Jardine. He tells Mary that Jardine has been murdered.
I believe we have a mutual acquaintance, Mrs. Cathcart.
Yes?
Anthony Jardine.
Yes, he's a very good friend of my husband.
Have you seen him lately?
Oh, not for several days.
I'm afraid you won't be seeing him for a long, long time. He's been murdered.
Murdered? Oh, no.
That's what I came to see your husband about.
Hardy did it.
She blurts out that her husband is responsible for the death. She passes out. Galt places her on the office sofa. Cathcart comes in holding a gun and demands that Galt take his hands off his wife. Cathcart disarms Galt and takes him downstairs to be murdered. Galt reveals that Cathcart was responsible for Jardine's murder and possibly for killing Stauffer.
You're a criminal. I apprehended you.
What about your wife? She knows you bumped off her boyfriend. You think she's gonna keep quiet?
What my wife thinks or does is no concern of yours. Leave her out of it. Jardine's corpse was found in your apartment.
Inside the vault, Cathcart is about to shoot Galt when he is gunned down by his wife, who is now standing at the top of the stairs. She empties the revolver and throws the empty gun at her husband. That's good hate. Lieutenant Reeves gives the story to the press and lets Galt go. Kathleen says they will be late in the morning as they are getting married.
Good night, Galt. I'll see you at the office first thing in the morning.
Would you make that a little later in the day? We have a date in the morning at the city hall. He hasn't asked me yet, but I told him from the beginning I was playing for keeps.
Well, there you have it, Reeves. Looks like it'll have to be tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, I'll see you then. And, congratulations.
Conclusion. I picked up 3 new noir or noirish phrases from this movie. The first was when Galt had a gun under his hat when confronting Stauffer. Galt called the revolver a pepper pot. The second is Stauffer asking for 2 yards powder money, meaning he will leave town for $200. Finally, after the suicide, taxi driver said, "I didn't know he would pull a Brody." Apparently, it is believed that Stephen Brody jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge in 1886. Since he survived, a Brody is considered taking a big chance. It's almost too obvious to mention, but you can see that this movie used a few elements from Lady in the Lake 1946, where the PI was doused with whiskey a couple of times and left to be drunk, and also Laura 1944, where Clifton Webb and some others were obsessed with a painting. World famous short summary: a woman extracts a high price for her support. This show is now completely free and independent, brought to you without ads. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review where you get your podcast. It really helps the show get found. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors.